Well, it's the weekend, and we have another episode of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. We are pretty much, let's see, almost halfway through the season. This is a shorter season. The ladies haven't gone on a trip this season, so we're just gonna be seeing them dueling it out in New Jersey. The most they will probably do is just, go to the Jersey Shore, which we've already seen. By the way, guys, for this recap, I'm just letting you know I had a big dinner. I can barely breathe. So if I look funny, you have been warned. Anyways, let's get into the recap. Definitely subscribe, turn on notifications, do all that good stuff. And let's get into the recap. All right. So, the beginning of this episode, usually what they'll do is they'll end off on a heavy note, kind of like a big epic scene at the end of an episode. And then the next episode, it'll be what are the ladies doing, catching up with each other, just them enjoying home life with their family. We see a call from Antonia. She is in university or college, as you Americans like to say, in college. She's, living her best dorm life. A check in from Antonia. And now we see Melissa is in that big house, that beautiful house with just the boys, including her dog being a boy. And I think her dog wears like a diaper, but still somehow manages to mess up the whole house. But anyway, Melissa and Joe Gorga, they're talking about the bougie brunch Danielle had the previous episode. And Melissa is telling Joey, like, hey, I think Danielle is starting to realize that she was basically set up by Jen Aydin last season. And Joe Gorga is like, well, you know how Trey is. It's basically like, what can you do for her? And then they basically talk about how, like, Teresa and Jackie, they've, formed this friendship now. So it's an interesting catch up between Melissa and Joe Gorga. We also see Jackie going over to Teresa's house, and who would have thought we would have a day like this where Jackie is happy to go to Teresa's house. They're not talking about some beef, but they're literally just hanging out like gal pals. Even the dog is there. They're talking about their kids who are the same age. Maybe they should get together. In Jackie's confessional, she was like, I'm really excited that I'm hanging out with Teresa. And if I was looking at this a year ago, I don't think I'd be able to explain it to myself. Jackie girl, we are so with you. Like, can you imagine a year ago if we all had a crystal ball? There is no way we would have thought Jackie and Teresa would be gal pals. In Jackie's confessional, she's also like how Teresa and Aiden, they are fun to hang out with, and there isn't like that heavy energy. And in my head, I'm just thinking Margaret. Um, when it comes to Teresa and Jennifer Aiden, yeah, one might not like that you're hanging out with someone, but they're not going to place ultimatums on you and the friendship with you like Margaret would. So I guess Jackie feels a little bit lighter in that sense, hanging out with Teresa and Jen. Now that Jackie is like good, well, I don't know about good friends, but friendly friends with Teresa, she did bring up the whole parking attendant comment about John Fuda that Teresa made. And Jackie was like, oh, by the way, like she really liked that comment or whatever. I mean, let's be real, guys. Teresa is like so funny, whether she does it on purpose or not. It just like she just blurts things out and it's just like real and authentic and in the moment. So, yes, we have like Teresa versus Melissa, but they're not like really talking. And now we kind of have like Teresa and Margaret. In the case of Teresa, like at least she's like funny, so I'll give her that. So basically, the first segment and like the first couple scenes, it's basically the girls debriefing the the brunch, the bougie brunch, either with their husbands or with each other. And then we move on to Rachel having a phone conversation with Marge, who is, I think she said she's in like Charleston or something for some birthday or whatever she said. And Rachel, who is of course there at the bougie brunch, she's relaying what happened there to Marge, and then John walks in and they just tell Marge about like the heated convo with Teresa, how it all went down, how Teresa didn't properly answer the question about calling John a drug dealer. Like Rachel Fuda asked Teresa in the last episode something to the extent like, what was your intention of even bringing it up? And Teresa, in a roundabout way, she didn't even answer. And then she walked out because she had a volleyball game. And in the scene with Teresa and Jackie, that's what Teresa said to Jackie, like, oh, yeah, my, daughter, like, she had a volleyball game. She had to, like, leave. Okay, Teresa. Regardless, anyone would leave in Teresa's case, I guess, if they didn't want to answer the question. Now, this comment Marge made to Rachel while on the phone, it was like so out of nowhere, where Marge was basically like, well, her husband is unemployed and mooches off of Trey. Oh my God. I'm assuming this is leading up to some other conversations down the road in the season where the ladies will come for Louis and how there's money troubles in the um, Teresa Louis mansion. So this is Marge planting a seed, is how I look at it. Okay, we get a scene from Dolores and Paulie. They head into a restaurant, and I knew we would get this talk between Dolores and Paulie. I just didn't realize it would be so early on. I thought we would see it, I don't know, maybe a couple episodes from earlier in the season, because Dolores did say to some of the girls previously, like the whole Polly not being divorced yet, she's going to have a chat with him sometime soon. I personally didn't think it would happen this fast. And I just thought it was so funny when Dolores and Polly walked into the restaurant. She just looked so cranky because the man was like looking at his watch, and she said something to the extent like, oh, do you have somewhere to be? And I kind of just took it as, you know what, maybe they're hungry, maybe they're hangry. Dolores, of course, has a lot on her mind. And then this man, he has the audacity to look at his watch. Like, you are going into a lunch with the gorgeous Dolores Catania, and you dare look at your watch? Come on, Polly, get it together. Now, there's nothing worse than having your girlfriends in your ear bring something up over and over again. And now it's not just you have to deal with it, your friends and family are in your ear also asking you, when's the timeline, what's happening? And then now you can't just live your life, you also have to answer to them. So Dolores brings up how she was asked about her and Polly, where things are, how fast are things going to move? What's up with the divorce? How she was asked about all that at the bougie brunch. And Dolores, of course, brings up Polly's divorce. Asks Polly now at the lunch. She asks Polly like, okay, so why is it taking so long? And he was like, yeah, like he was supposed to be divorced last year, but like things are just taking a while. And in Dolores's case, she doesn't have a ring, but she moved in with the man about a year ago at the point of filming this scene. And then they also showed clips of David, who was the doctor who gave her. He gave her a car, but he didn't give her a ring. I believe he didn't give her a ring, or maybe he did. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But she didn't move in with David. But then Frank, her ex-husband, somehow moved in with David. Anyways, we don't need to get back into the whole David situation. Now, Polly apparently filed for separation 3 years ago, and Something to the extent of 3 years is what he said, and it's taking him and his ex-wife a while to sift through division of property, is my understanding from what Paulie said. And Paulie, I didn't like seeing this version of him. He was like gaslighting her a little bit. And he was just like, Dolores, if you need to do some rethinking, then you got to do some rethinking. And the way he was speaking to her, at her, it was not fun seeing this side of Paulie. I mean, Dolores is, she can definitely hold her own, but this is what we are seeing on camera. We don't know what happens behind the scenes, guys. Obviously, we know her and Paulie are still together, so good for them. However, this man, as of today, is still technically married to his ex-wife. And that's where we are on the Paulie and Dolores story. We get to see a little bit of just behind the scenes when it comes to Bougie Kids. We've been hearing about the Bougie Kids New York fashion show for a while. It's taking some time for Danielle to prep, so cameras are following her around as she preps for it. And Danielle is just like going through the list, finalizing it. She did invite Melissa. Melissa had a +1, and some family members will also be in attendance for the show. Yet again, we see Danielle talking to Nate about her dad, and we still don't know what happened. So it's like a little frustrating. It's like she keeps bringing something up, keep dangling a storyline to the viewers, but we have no idea what happened. All we know is her dad liked some images of her brothers and he didn't like her images. I don't know, on Instagram. I literally have no idea. I'm like so delirious right now and I'm so full from dinner. Like I don't know what's going on in the world of Danielle and her family. She won't say it. And we can't have a whole Kyle Richards, Morgan Wade situation for another season where they talk about it, but then they don't talk about it. And then you're just like, okay, well, like you're wasting camera time. Like let's talk about something else that you are willing to share about. We then have a scene with about half the cast where it's Marge. She is part of this golf event called Clubs for Cause charity event. And she's there to hand out her non-alcoholic drink soiree. She is going to be in a golf cart and try not to run into trees and other carts and hand out her beverage, her non-alcoholic beverage soiree to the golfers throughout the day, basically. And who joins her? We got the Fudas, both Rachel and John. And then we got Melissa, we got Dolores. So it's the four of them on this, I don't know, soiree golf day. And then they finally chill, hang out on the grass, and they just kind of talk about Melissa's housewarming. And I personally didn't like the direction of this conversation yet again from Marge, which I'll get to. Melissa is like, okay, like the housewarming's coming up, everyone's invited. Melissa even invited Jackie, and Marge made another like rude, crass comment where she's just like, oh, it's a good thing you invited Jackie because if you didn't, then she would be spiraling and like blame it on you, Melissa. She's almost making fun of someone else's like mental health in a way, but like not really. I don't know, guys. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I'm team no one. I'm team show. I've been watching this show for way too long. And last episode, when I recapped it or in one of my morning goss segments, I said I've been watching this show since I was young myself. So then, like, anyways, we're not going to get into how old everyone is. But basically, when I see like Marge, or it doesn't even matter which housewife show, when people make these crass comments, it's kind of like that was very low. Like we didn't need to go there. Like Marge, you're just mad at Jackie for switching teams or I don't know, not being as friendly with you for whatever reason, whatever situation you got going on with Jackie. The ladies kind of bring up the whole Fuda and Teresa situation that happened over at the Bougie brunch, and food is just like, my tank is empty. I'm over it. I have like nothing left to say. I mean, look, guys, good thing, good, good for Rachel Fuda. Like, at least she was clear, concise, and spoke her mind at the Bougie brunch and said what she needed to say to Teresa's face right then and there. And she's very direct, which I always appreciate from a housewife. Dolores chimes in about the whole Fuda versus Teresa and Louie, and she's just like, at least like you guys fight, but like don't drag it on, and fight about little things, whatever. And then again, they talk about Dolores and Paulie, them potentially getting engaged in the future, whatever. This part made me a little sad because now I feel like she's kind of like taking away things. She's like, "Oh, I don't need a big huge ring. I'll take a," and then she's like, "I'll take a big huge ring." Like, look, if Dolores wants to have a big wedding or like a big elevated wedding, because I understand she is a woman of a particular age, I don't think she's going to take the Teresa route with the big hair and all of that. I do think if Dolores and Polly get married, it will be, I don't know how to say this. It won't be big in the sense they're going to have like 300 people. I think it's going to be big in the sense it will be beautifully decorated and in a very nice, fancy venue. So, not big as in a big reception with a lot of people, but extremely tasteful and well decorated. So that's what I envision for Dolores and Polly. But Polly boy, you better, get that divorce finalized fast, because Dolores is like, I'm not doing this for another year. And I'm sure she gets the question pretty much every time she sits down with friends and family. At this point, Dolores does bring up the snappy conversation her and Polly had, the lunch that they had. And she just talks about like Polly like kind of like being snappy with her and how that conversation went. And this is yet another crass comment Marge made. Guys, look, again, I'm not team anyone, but I will call people out. And in this episode, I've noticed Marge making a lot of crass comments. And if you have a certain moral compass and someone says something that you don't agree with, you're gonna call them out. Where so Dolores is talking about her and Polly, right? And obviously he's still separated. Him not getting divorced is like taking forever. So like obviously, what is Dolores supposed to do? Even if she gets a ring from him, it's meaningless because the guy can't get married to her, at least not legally. And then Marge makes a comment how she was divorced and literally a week later she was in like Vegas or whatever and she married Joe Benigno, and then they show a picture of her and Joe in the back of a car. Look, before I place judgment, because I got something to say, we don't know. Well, okay, at least I don't know. I haven't looked into this. I don't know if Marge was separated to her ex-husband for like a very long time and then she met Joe, or like I think there was some cheating going on. You guys fill in the gaps. I've had a very long day. You guys let me know in the comments. We could keep this whole Marge Joe ex-husband combo going. But when she was like, "Oh, I got divorced and then a week later I got married again." Again, a very crass comment. People don't just like leave their husbands or things, people don't just like dissolve their marriages for no reason, especially for women. Like as we're seeing on the Valley with Brittany and Jax, you don't just like leave your marriage. Like it takes a very long time before a woman actually leaves, or even for the man and the women, if it's just like paperwork, that's still very emotional. And then there's like the courts and lawyers involved. It's a lot. So to make crass comments like that, I don't know. I think it's just like off putting when we see Marge make those comments. And I know Jennifer Aydin in a previous season did comment on Marge's morality in like the way she moves. I don't know if morality is like the best word I'm using, But Jennifer Aydin, obviously, she's a very traditional woman, and, like, if you see eye to eye with women like Jennifer Aydin, you're probably not going to see eye to eye with Marge. They're just two different women, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. Some of the comments Marge makes, it does cut in a weird way because we just look at her like, "Girl, what are you saying? Like, this is not the time for a comment like that." Anyways, I know I went on a whole different tangent, but you guys let me know if you feel the same way, if you're okay with Marge's comments or not. Back to the recap. Now, as we see Dolores chatting about Paulie with the girls at the golf event, we also see Paulie with the boys at the same golf event. And Paulie's just like, oh, Dolores sees us like moving forward this way, like, an engagement, this and that, whatever. Whereas Polly's like, look, I'm actually moving my office from the city to Jersey. And this to Polly means him and Dolores are now going to go into business together. He's sharing that with the boys, how they are going to flip real estate. And that's like the big plan that Polly has. In his head, he has like a bigger, longer plan for him and Dolores. Now, when Polly is saying that, we see Joe Gorga's head spinning, where Joe in his confessional was like, she wants to sit back, drive a Rolls Royce, and he goes to work, which is what Joe Gorga is like, that's what Dolores wants. Meanwhile, Polly over here is thinking about going into business with Dolores. Look, guys, I think at the end of the day, Polly and Dolores, they definitely want to be with each other. It's just a matter of some legal issues in this case. Unlike the doctor she was with, he wouldn't even make like proper time for her. Polly, in this case, definitely envisions a future with Dolores. It's just a matter of getting certain things taken care of. However, sometimes, wanting to be with each other isn't enough. You sometimes have to take care of those other things. And if those other things aren't taken care of, in his case, a major deal breaker, him not being divorced, yeah, Dolores might want to think twice. And a big part of this episode was the whole Dolores Polly situation. And that's kind of the end of that. Okay, so we do get a fun scene between Jennifer Aydin and Jen Fessler. And this friendship to me definitely does seem real and legitimate. So that's great. And you know what? We gotta just take a look at Jen Fessler. We gotta give her a moment. The glow. I mean, look, this lady looked fine to begin with. There was nothing wrong with her. But the glow up that she has had, her housewives glow up, is one that has been done right. She still looks age appropriate. Her face doesn't look too done. Her arms look great. That's all I had to say, guys. I just really wanted to like point that out. I really like Jen Fessler. She looks great. She's fun. Anyways, back to Jen Aydin and Jen Fessler. So we get a scene from these two, and of course, they're kind of like recapping the bougie brunch Jen Aydin was at, and Jen Fessler wasn't there. So Jen Aydin, of course, is, filling in Jen Fessler on what had happened. And Jennifer Aydin is just like her and Melissa, they're on a clean slate. The slate is clean. They're kind of just like starting fresh. And now that Jennifer Aydin and Melissa Gorga are on getting to better terms, I guess. They're not quite on better terms yet, but they're getting there. Melissa has invited Jen Aydin to her housewarming party, and Jennifer Aydin, after they've had that chat, she looks quite receptive. And then Jen Fessler, um, she's just asking, like, so how is like Teresa handling with you and Melissa becoming friends? And Aiden's just like, you know what? She's like fine with me going to the party. And of course, in Jennifer Aydin's confessional, she's basically just like she doesn't want to be like left out. And honestly, guys, reality show or not, nobody wants to feel left out. So that's totally understandable why Jennifer Aydin is moving the way Jennifer Aydin is. Also, you guys have to remember Joe Gorga and Bill Aydin. They're like true friends. Like those are like real friends. They're like real guy friends. Like they're all part of the same group. So it's kind of a bummer that their wives are like always at it, or Joe Gorga and Jennifer Aydin, they're like always at it. And then Fessler kind of brings up how she's in kind of the same situation with Marge, but the difference between Teresa and Marge, again, Teresa, yeah, she might not like certain things, but she's not gonna like, I don't know, she's not gonna like tell you what to do. Whereas in Marge's case, she is like flat out telling Jen Fessler like what to do, not to do. We're gonna walk from the show, all that sort of crap. And in recapping the Bougie brunch, since Fessler wasn't there, Jennifer Aydin's like, oh, Danielle thinks she was set up, but I told her not to. But like, come on, let's be real. Jennifer Aydin knew what she was doing last year. She told Danielle not to do it in hopes that Danielle would do it. And then Danielle took the bait last year and talked about the whole Melissa situation in Ireland. And then of course, that was explosive last season, but we're still talking about it this season since, Danielle's kind of like catching up and like cluing into like what happened. Anyways, as Jennifer Aydin's recapping the bougie brunch, she's talking about how Teresa said, "Oh, John Fuda used to be a drug dealer. He's not a drug dealer now." Guys, this whole time they keep talking about the John Fuda drug dealer stuff, what Teresa said, whether he was one in the past or present. I am just like, are we seriously having this conversation? Who cares if the man was a drug dealer, is a drug dealer? The fact that Teresa keeps bringing up, or the fact that she even brought it up once, that this man was a drug dealer, it's like a part of the conversation on national TV now. Like, is no one getting that? So even Jennifer Aydin trying to make an excuse for Teresa is just like mind-boggling. And then Jen Fessler sitting there like, oh yeah, as if that's any better, saying it in, in the context of him doing it in the past versus the present. Anyways, we finally get to the Bougie Kids fashion show. Good for Danielle. She's getting all the cute little kids ready in her clothing. We see Nate showing up with flowers, and then we also see Melissa showing up. So they're seated front seat. We, of course, see Danielle freaking out backstage, which, it makes sense. She's worked so hard on it. She's looking back at like how far she's come along from Bougie Kids, just being an idea to now this becoming a reality. Her clothing on the runway of New York Fashion Week. That's like a major deal. And in Melissa's confessional, she gave huge props to Danielle for having her, for her getting a spot in New York Fashion Week. So that was really nice to see. Also, guys, I'm always a little amazed and surprised and inquisitive, I guess, about why Bravo chooses to showcase certain housewife brands and products and like whatever they're working on, and then certain housewives like Crystal, of course, this was a big point of contention, I feel like. We of course know that she has this big like coconut water line, and they didn't like really showcase it on the show. But then we have certain housewives where their brand is highly showcased on the show. It's like a whole storyline. So I don't know, maybe it's because for Danielle, like, it's not some multi-million dollar like coconut beverage line. Maybe it's like a small thing. So Bravo's like, okay, whatever, let's just like show it. I don't know. You guys let me know if you guys have any like thoughts on that. It's just something I've kind of noticed. Okay, guys, we're nearing the end of the episode and we're getting kind of to like the meat of this episode, which was heavily advertised. And at the when was it? Polly basically got a FaceTime call from Louis, and Louis had asked Polly to have a sit down with John Fuda. But in that FaceTime call with Polly, I guess Louis also asked for like the wives to be there. And it's probably, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Rachel and Teresa, they're both equally hot headed. Um, but it's probably a smart move that the wives are also there. And it's not just the guys, like, I don't know, duking it out and then like they end up fighting. So thank you, Polly, for being the guy in the middle for setting it up. And that's essentially how we end this episode. So let's take a look at like the food is getting ready, Teresa and Louis getting ready, what their headspace is going into this conversation. Now let's kind of like set the stage before we go into this conversation. The Fudas, John Fuda, he wants an apology from Teresa regarding the park attendant comment that she made at the bougie brunch, and the drug dealer comment. And honestly, guys, rightfully so. Like, why did she? Okay, the parking attendant comment, it was funny. Yes, it was funny. I'll give her that. It was definitely not right because John Fuda, he's mad. He's like, look, I work hard for my family. And then this woman's just like, saying all these awful things about me when I'm like a good member of society now. And then we also see Teresa and Louis having their chat prior to this lunch. And Teresa is like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. And this man is demanding an apology. So, I don't know, guys. To me, I think going into all of this, the Fudas, they just come off a little bit more mature, even though they are a lot younger compared to Louis and Teresa. But honestly, when we look at this pic, it looks like a mirror. They're looking into each other. One is just an older version, one is just a younger version of each other. Now, before we get into what happened at this lunch, now when they meet, it was kind of nice seeing Teresa bring something for her brother because, as you guys know, Melissa and Joe Gorga, they're about to have a housewarming party. When I saw Teresa and Louis walking in, and I believe it was Louis or was it Teresa holding something? And I'm like, oh, is this kind of like an olive branch to Rachel and John Fuda? It wasn't. However, them all just sitting there, I think that alone is a massive olive branch. But whatever box it was, it's so that the Fudas can hand it to the Gorgas for their housewarming party. So I think that was, a classy move for Teresa and Louis, considering they are not on speaking terms with her own one and only brother. Okay, last season, the Fudas and Danielle and Nate had joined the show, and we kind of saw an easy division of our two new young housewives. It seemed like Danielle was like kind of in the middle, but then she kind of chose to be more Teresa, Jen Aydin, and then Rachel Fuda seems like she already knew Melissa. So in Teresa's eyes, it was like, well, I kind of liked you guys, but since you seemed like you're more friends with like Melissa, like things just kind of like didn't work out. Rachel Fuda immediately just seemed to be more friendly with Melissa. And then of course all the stuff between like Louis and the Fudas, it just ended up being a shit show. And then we finally get into the whole drug dealer commentary, and Teresa's like, I wasn't calling you a drug dealer currently, I'm sorry if I said it like currently, like, and Rachel's just like, okay, well, it's not about the verb. It's like, you shouldn't have brought it up in the first place. And Teresa's doing her whole, well, it's out there. It's out there. We gotta pause, guys. It's out there because you and Louis probably put it out there. Right? Or even if it's on the blogs and stuff, okay, let it be on some like random blog. At least it's not like mainstream. But once you talk about it on the show, millions of people are going to watch it. So I totally understand why the Fudas are mad. And then John Fuda, Teresa, they get into it. And it's just like a back and forth. And he's trying to explain like, look, I did that whole thing. It was like weed when he was like young, and weed's like legal where they are now. And he's like, you took info from his ex, who at the time of filming was currently in jail for selling meth. It's essentially what he said, which is a much bigger issue. And then he also talks about what his ex, I guess she tried to like run over him, which is like insane. And John Fooders was just like, I may have sold a little bit of weed like back in the day when I was a young guy. And look at me now, I've really turned things around. But you guys are getting info from an actual criminal who's behind bars at the moment for things that are way worse. And then the apology. John Fuda, rightfully so. This man is like sticking to it. He wants an apology from Teresa. She does her whole roundabout thing. The problem is Teresa's quite hard-headed. She went into this thing like, you guys started it. You owe me the first apology, and then like maybe I'll give you an apology. She doesn't I don't think she understands how bad this whole John Fuda situation is, what they're saying about him. Like, it doesn't matter if they started something with you. What you said about him, that's like pretty awful. And she, of course, she fumbles. She doesn't apologize. She says, like, oh, you said this to Louis. Anyways, I'm not even going to go into it. It was just like back and forth, back and forth. So, of course, the Fudas get up. They're like, what was even the point of this? They get up. And then the exchange just continues. And I don't know. Teresa said something to the extent, I think it's like a Jersey word. So I don't even know how to like say it, but that's when John had the comeback about like the money laundering and all that crap. Guys, they did not end off on a good note. I think this was a good effort on both parties to try and have some sort of resolve. However, when we have two, or not two, just even one hot-headed person in the room, things are not going to go well. And I'm actually quite surprised Louis managed to just be at a regular level of red. We didn't see this man become like fully red. He was actually one of the calm people in the room, which I was surprised by, but good for him, because when it comes to Louis and Teresa, one of them has to be calm. If both of them are, unhinged, it's going to be way worse. Anyways, guys, I think it was a good episode. You guys let me know your thoughts on this episode. What stood out to you? What are your thoughts on Paulie and Dolores? Do you guys think there's any future for the Fudas and Louis and Trey? Let me know in the comments. We got more to discuss when it comes about New Jersey. I also Watch What Happens Live. Teresa was on it. She said some stuff there, which I think I will talk about later on in the week. That's the recap for this episode. I will catch you all later. Subscribe, do all that good YouTube stuff, and have a good night.